welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to be making, Basil gets really excited every time I say that, I don't know why. Maybe she just wants to say hi to the camera, huh? You want to say hi? Yeah. She's getting heavy. Anyway, today I'm going to be sewing a pretty easy, really cute sundress because it's really hot where I live right now, even though it is January and I've been wearing summer clothes anyway, so I feel like it's appropriate enough. But I'm going to be using this green linen fabric that I got from Mood Fabrics when I went to New York in... What? It's just me talking to a camera. I'm just being weird by myself. It's okay. But I got this green linen fabric when I went to Mood Fabrics back in December, and I literally had a spiritual experience there. It was amazing. And everything was really expensive, but I had to splurge a little bit. So I got 2 yards of this fabric, and I was honestly just like daydreaming about like wearing this like linen dress in my van by myself. And so I had to get it. You're so excited. But this tutorial should be pretty easy. I'm going to make this dress like really adjustable because I've been really into like figuring out different ways to like not use zippers but still get like a fitted look. Because honestly, when I've done that in the past, they tend to be like some of my favorite outfits because they're just the most comfortable to me. But that also makes them more adjustable for different sizes because you can kind of like mess with how tight it is, I guess. So this one's going to be using buttons as a fastener. And I think it's going to be really cute. So I'm really excited. It shouldn't be too hard. Basil's being insane. Let's get to work. Literally, what are you doing? I have to show my messy room. They're not supposed to see that, Baze. You're being nuts. Bring it here. What? Oh my goodness. Should we get to work? Are you gonna let me work? Probably not. All right. Once Basil had calmed down a little bit, I started cutting out all of my pieces. And so here is the front piece and its measurements. This is just a basic rectangle, super simple to cut out. And then the next piece here is the back piece. And this is also pretty much the same thing, except it's going to have a slightly rounded back. And then these here are just like the little added pieces that we're going to need. So we have 2 straps and then these 2 little back loops for the buttons on the back. And then this piece here is just the skirt, and this is a half circle skirt that is cut on the fold, so we're only going to need 1 of these. And then the last piece is just all of the ruffles, and the total length of all of these should be 180 inches. And so the first thing we're going to get started on is the front piece. And for this, I'm folding this rectangle in half, and I'm marking 6 inches in, and I'm adding 2 darts here. So these are just little triangles that are going to go into my fabric and then fade out at 6 inches. And at the largest part of the edge, it's pinned down 3/4 of an inch. So we're going to be taking in a total of 1.5 inches, and we're just going to sew these right down with a regular straight stitch. And then when you open this back up, this is what it should look like. So it's just going to have like these 2 little darts on either side of the front. And then I'm just cutting the bottom edge of the front piece a little bit to make it more of a diagonal shape so that the waist is a little bit smaller than the top. And it's a little bit easier to do this after adding in the darts. And then here I'm going to be taking some single fold bias tape, and we're just going to use this to finish up the top edge. So I'm just opening up one edge of my bias tape, pinning it along the top edge of the front piece, making sure these are pretty side to pretty side. And then I'm just going to stitch it down right on that folded line. And once the first part of that is sewn down, then we're going to flip the bias tape up and over to the other side. And then we're going to pin this down and top stitch the bottom edge of it down. And that's going to give us a totally finished seam across the top edge. And then we're bringing in the back piece, and we're just sewing these pieces together pretty side down their side seams. And honestly, I should have sewn these together down their side seams first and then added bias tape across both of the edges. But I ended up finishing the back edge like not how I originally planned to. So I didn't know that at the time. And so you'll see here, I was originally just going to hem the back edge, but I realized this was making it more bulky than I wanted it to be, but I ended up just adding more bias tape across the back edge as well. And this is where I realized I really should have added my straps in before doing any of these steps, because I honestly just was a mess while I was sewing this, if I'm being totally honest. So if you're actually going to do this in the proper order, I would start with the straps by just folding them in half the long ways and sewing them into these long tubes. And I also serged these pieces just to help with fraying, since linen can fray quite a bit. And then my serger broke down, so honestly this was just not my day. So I ended up zigzagging these raw edges down instead, which is a great option if you don't have a serger. And I honestly use it as a backup all the time. And then I turned my strap pieces right side out, and I finished up the little raw edges on one of these sides by folding it over twice and top stitching that down. And you want to leave this fold a little bit wider than you typically would, because we're going to be adding ribbon through it later. And then I measured 16 inches down from that folded edge and cut off the little excess. And the little excess part we're going to be using as the other side of the straps. So I'm just taking this little extra piece and folding it in half and pinning it in place. And then to make my life a little easier, I added a basting stitch across that edge as well. And a basting stitch is just the longest stitch length on your machine to hold it temporarily. So here is what the top is looking like now. It should fit like just loosely around the top edge, but then be pretty loose around the waist so you can get it on and off pretty easily. And I really should have added straps beforehand, and I always forget to do that. So now I'm going to have to seam rip some of this finished edge and attach them, but it is what it is. So if you also did this in the wrong order as me, I just marked where I wanted my straps to end up going, and then I seam ripped that little section open on my bias tape. So if you also made the same mistake, it's not that bad to fix. You just kind of undo both of the rows and sew the straps into the first line of stitching that we did, and then again fold it over and encase it so that the straps also don't have a raw edge. And so the longer straps are going to go on the front, and then the little extra loops that we made are going to go to the back. And as you can see, this is where I ended up seam ripping the back and using bias tape instead. So if you are following this tutorial, I would recommend you make the straps first, then sew the front and back pieces together down their side seams, and then pin your straps in place and add bias tape all across the top edges at one time, just because that'll make it a little bit simpler. But honestly, this way worked fine as well. It's just a few extra steps. But once that was all fixed up and sewn in place, I'm just taking some ribbon here and threading it through either side of those straps, and then tying it in a little bow to get these really cute adjustable straps. Alright, and this is how far I got on night one. I totally finished the bodice, and I think it looks really cute. Look at that little bow detail, and I'm pretty excited about it. So now to start on these skirts, the first thing I'm doing is taking that really big skirt piece and folding it in half and sewing those two edges together so that we get one completed circle. And then once again, I used my serger to finish up that raw edge. And then I added 2 parallel basting stitches all across the waistband of the skirt. And we're going to use these to gather it up and add a slight ruffling detail around the waist. And the way this works is we're going to take 2 of the basting stitches that are on the same side of the fabric, and when you pull on those, it's going to create these gathers, And we're going to kind of create these gathers and space them out evenly until they fit into the waist of the bodice. And then I marked the center of the back of the bodice and matched that up to the back seam on the skirt. And then I just continued pinning these all the way around and I sewed them together. And after I made sure I was happy with the skirt, I took out all of those basting stitches. And I didn't show it, but I did again serge around the waist. And now we're going to start putting the ruffles along the bottom of the skirt. So the total length of all of these pieces together was 180 inches, but I had to cut mine into several different pieces. So the first step I did was just sewing these all together into one large loop. And then again, it was time to add more basting stitches. Again, I did 2 parallel basting stitches all across the top edge of the ruffles. And because the ruffles were so long, I separated the loop into 2 equal halves. And I was starting and stopping stitches on either of those halves so that it would be a little bit easier to gather later. And then I marked out the same halves on the bottom of the skirt and matched those up so that the ruffles would be equally spaced across the bottom of the skirt. And then I ruffled up the bottom to fit into these sections and I pinned them together and sewed all the way around. And once that was done, again, I pulled out the basting stitches and serged across that edge. Alright, it has been a very hectic morning. I got 4 hours of sleep even though I went to bed really early to get 9 hours of sleep because excuse you, I just couldn't sleep. So there's that. And then I just got home from school and Basil made a humongous mess and needed a shower. So now she is absolutely insane. But I really want to finish this project today and we don't have a lot to do. So let's get to it. Come here. Hi. Nice. Touch. Now we're going to finish up the last little detail on the bodice. And I'm taking these little button loops that we made and sewing them all the way around except for the little bottom edge so we have a place to turn them right side out. And then I also top stitched them to give them a little bit of a crisper look. And then I switched out my regular presser foot for my buttonhole presser foot and added 1 buttonhole on either of these little loop pieces. And if you don't know how to do this, there's a whole bunch of tutorials on YouTube. I will link one in the description box and don't be intimidated. They are honestly surprisingly easy to do. And then once those were sewn, I just cut open the little hole so that we could actually put the button through it. And then we're just going to be attaching these pieces to either of our side seams. So first we're going to pin it with the little rounded edge towards the front of our dress and stitch that down. And then we're going to fold it to be facing the back side and we're going to top stitch the edge down so that we encase the raw edge. And now this is how we're going to make the dress kind of fit our waist more. So I'm marking where the button would go to make it lay flat. And then to make it fit my waist, I needed it to go in an extra 7 inches. So I divided that number by 2 and made it go in 3.5 inches further from either button, so that when I'm wearing the dress and button it, it'll snugly fit my waist. And then I just sewed on those buttons, and you can do this by hand, but I prefer to do it on my machine. And then here I just decided to hem the bottom edge of the skirt to just finish that right up. And then it's time for the fun part, because I bought a whole bunch of different trims and then I actually ended up using one kind of them. But I added some trims to both the neckline of the dress just by putting it on the backside and top stitching it down. And then I also added some down the seam where the ruffles meet the skirt. And I just love adding fun trims. So you can go as crazy with this or as simple as you want, or you don't even have to add them at all. But just have fun with it. But once you finish adding all of that pizzazz, the dress is finally done. I honestly love how this dress turned out. I think it perfectly captures those cottagecore vibes. It's very cute and comfortable, and I can see myself wearing it all summer long. And this dress is also super easy for beginners, but I think especially with all the trims and stuff, it doesn't just look like a beginner dress. And I am in love with both the straps and the buttons on the back, and both of those features make this dress very adjustable. And I honestly really love the aesthetic of both of them. I can see myself just like keeping this dress in my van and like frolicking in some random fields in it. And honestly, like that's exactly what I was thinking when I got this fabric. So I'm very happy I achieved those vibes. And it's honestly just the perfect dress for summer. And I also wanted to mention that the jewelry I styled this dress with is from the cutest shop on Etsy called Bella La Jewelry. And she was so kind to gift me some of her pieces, and they are just so stunning and like fit the cottagecore vibes perfectly. So I will be linking her shop in my description box, and you guys should definitely check her out. But I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. If you happen to make this dress, you can always send me a picture on Instagram. I love seeing your guys' creations, and I hope you guys all have a very lovely rest of your day. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!